Mara Ellison walked into the main office of the security agency with a tired but determined expression. She had flown back into the city only 3 days earlier, and she already had a list of urgent tasks that stretched longer than she liked to admit. But there was one task she could not delay any longer: choosing a personal guard. She didn't enjoy the idea of having someone follow her around, but after months of traveling to busy project sites and meeting many different groups of people, her organization insisted she take the precaution. So here she was, in a bright office with glass walls, chairs lined up against one side, and the steady hum of air conditioning filling the room. The agency had arranged interviews with 8 candidates, and from the brief notes they had emailed her, she expected strong, imposing figures, people who could fill a doorway and look like nothing could push them aside. It wasn't something she personally needed, but she knew her team back home would not approve her next travel schedule unless she had someone officially assigned to her. As she settled into her seat behind the desk, she flipped through the printed resumes. Each one looked the same at first glance: years of training, experience in difficult areas, certificates that lined the pages like decorations. She sighed. She hoped she would find someone who wasn't just strong on paper but easy to work with as well. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. The agency director, a tall man named Rafi, stepped inside, ready to begin. He asked with a friendly smile. "As ready as I can be," Mara replied. Rafi chuckled. "Don't worry, these are all top candidates. You'll find the right one today." Mara hoped he was right. The first applicant walked in, a broad-shouldered man with a serious expression. He answered her questions clearly, but the conversation felt stiff and heavy, like every sentence was weighed down by formality. She thanked him, and the next person came in, and then the next. Some were polite, some confident, some a little too confident. They all spoke about their strength, their past missions, their ability to protect, but none of them made her feel that natural sense of ease she was looking for. For interviews later, Mara leaned back in her chair and rubbed her temples. She wasn't bored, but she wasn't convinced yet either. Then Rafi returned to the door with a clipboard. "Next candidate, Liam Cruz." The name didn't stand out to her. It sounded quiet, almost gentle, not like the bold names she had just heard. And then he walked in. Mara blinked, almost thinking he might have entered the wrong room. Liam was much smaller than the others. Liam, calm-looking with relaxed shoulders and steady eyes. He climbed no higher than her shoulder in height, and he moved with a soft, almost silent step. He looked more like a thoughtful student than someone applying for personal protection work. For a second, Mara simply stared. Then, before she could stop herself, she let out a short laugh, not from rudeness but pure surprise. "You're too small to be my guard," she said lightly, not expecting the remark to sound as dismissive as it did. Liam paused, not offended, not amused either, just quiet. He gave a small nod, the kind that showed he had heard the comment many times before. "I understand," he said in a calm voice, "but I appreciate the chance to speak with you." Mara felt a tiny pinch of guilt. She hadn't meant to discourage him. It was just that she had spent hours reading profiles and forming expectations. Someone like Liam simply didn't match the picture she had in her mind. "Please, sit," she said, correcting her tone. Liam sat down with a posture so straight and controlled that it looked like a habit built over many years. He folded his hands lightly and waited for her questions. "So, Liam," she began, flipping through his resume, "I see you have limited information here." "I prefer not to list everything," he replied politely. "Only what is needed." Mara raised an eyebrow. Most applicants had tried to impress her by listing long histories of completed tasks and detailed training programs. His resume was simple, almost too simple. A few lines about past experience, a couple of certifications, but nothing that matched the long lists she had seen earlier. "Can you tell me why you want this position?" she asked. Liam thought for a moment before answering. "I prefer purposeful work. Your organization does things that matter. If I can support that, even in a small way, that is enough." His reply was modest and sincere, and for the first time since he entered, Mara felt something shift. He didn't sound like someone trying to convince her. He sounded like someone who believed every word he spoke. Still, she had practical concerns. "This job includes long travel, unpredictable schedules, and a lot of time in areas where communication isn't always easy," she explained. "It's not simple, and it's not always comfortable. You're aware of that?" "Yes," Liam said. "I've worked in those conditions before." "You don't seem tense," Mara said, searching for the right word. "Most people come in stiff, like they're preparing for an exam. You're very calm." "It's just how I am," he replied. She studied him for a moment. His voice was soft, but not shy. His posture was still, but not rigid. There was a certain steadiness about him, like he carried an inner balance no one could shake. "But she couldn't ignore the obvious, Liam," she said gently, trying to choose her words carefully this time. "The situations I go into are not light. My team wants someone who can handle pressure. Some people might overlook you or underestimate you. Does that bother you?" "Not at all," he said with a faint smile. "Being underestimated is normal. It never changes what I can do." Something in his answer nudged at her curiosity. What experience told her to be practical? Before she could ask her next question, Rafi, who had been standing quietly by the door, spoke up. Actually, Mara, I think you should observe his assessment before you make a decision. Mara looked at him. Assessment? Yes, all candidates go through a simulated test, Rafi explained. You've already seen the videos of the others. Liam's test is scheduled in 20 minutes. You're welcome to watch. Liam nodded politely, as if this test meant nothing unusual to him. Mara hesitated. She had already made up her mind, or at least she thought she had. Liam simply seemed too different from what the role demanded. But Rafi wouldn't make such a suggestion without reason. He was known for choosing his words carefully. She turned back to Liam. You don't mind if I watch? She asked. Not at all, he answered. You should see whatever helps you decide. The calmness in his tone surprised her again. No nervousness. No attempt to impress. Just steady acceptance, all right, she said. Let's observe. As she stood up, she found herself studying him from another angle. His small build didn't look like a weakness anymore, it looked intentional. His quietness didn't feel uncertain, it felt controlled. She wasn't convinced yet, but she was curious now, and curiosity was something she trusted. They stepped out into the hallway, passing assistants, scrolling screens, and a wide window overlooking the training floor. Mara glanced down briefly and saw the padded mats, the instructors preparing the space where each candidate was evaluated. She felt a small spark of interest. Maybe this would help her decide once and for all. As they walked side by side, Mara looked over at Liam. He walked with the same easy pace he had shown since the moment he entered the office. No rush, no worry, no attempt to prove anything. And for the first time since the day began, Mara felt a shift in the air, something she couldn't quite name yet, but something that made her feel she was about to witness something she had not expected at all. She didn't know it yet, but the next few minutes would change her entire view of him, and of the kind of strength she thought she needed. Mara walked along the quiet hallway with Rafi and Liam, feeling a growing curiosity that she hadn't expected an hour earlier. She had thought the interviews would be simple. Meet each candidate, check their experience, pick the one who felt right. But now, after meeting Liam, she felt she was about to learn something new about him, and maybe about herself too. They reached a wide balcony window that looked down into the large training hall. The space was bright, open, and organized neatly, with padded flooring for safety, a few tall mirrors on the far wall, and storage racks filled with training gear. Several instructors stood gathered, preparing for the next assessment. They wore light protective equipment, not for confrontation but for demonstration and practice. Everything was designed to test coordination, awareness, and calm thinking under pressure without any harmful activity. Mara rested her hands on the railing and looked around. She had seen this room earlier in short video clips, candidates navigating obstacle courses, responding to timed instructions, performing partner exercises, and showing how well they could stay focused in unexpected situations. The assessment wasn't about strength alone. It was about control, timing, and quick decisions. This is where the real selection happens, Rafi said softly, leaning beside her. Interviews help, but here's where we learn who someone really is. Mara nodded, still watching the instructors set up a new course. Cones were placed in a winding path. Color-coded markers were set along the floor. A few padded blocks were arranged in different positions. One instructor held a clipboard, another carried a timer, and a third checked the communication devices the candidates used during the test. She noticed that each test required the person to follow rapid instructions, sometimes through speakers, sometimes through hand signals to see how well they adapted. It reminded her of her own job, changing plans suddenly, adjusting to new information, making choices carefully but quickly. Liam's turn soon, she asked. In about 5 minutes, Rafi replied. He knows the routine. He's done similar tests many times. Mara glanced at Liam. He stood a few steps behind them, quietly observing the whole. He didn't look tense or hurried. His hands were loosely clasped behind his back, and his breathing seemed slow and steady, as if he were simply enjoying a calm afternoon. Most candidates she had seen earlier looked stiff before their tests, glancing around nervously or stretching repeatedly, but Liam looked as comfortable as someone waiting in line for a cup of tea. That unusual calm made Mara feel even more interested. How do you feel? She asked him. Normal, Liam answered gently. These exercises are familiar. You don't get nervous? Not really. Nervousness makes thinking difficult. I try to stay centered. His answer was simple, but she sensed a depth behind it. Some people said such things to impress others. But with Liam, it sounded like a habit he had practiced for years. One of the instructors signaled toward the balcony. We're ready for the next participant. Rafi tapped the railing. That's you, Liam. Liam nodded and walked down the stairs to the main floor. His steps were quiet, and he moved with an ease that drew attention, not because he tried to, but because he didn't rush or hesitate. Mara followed his movement with her eyes. She had thought earlier that he looked too small for the role she needed, but seeing him from above, calmly entering the wide training hall with its bright lights and watchful instructors, she felt something shift inside her. Maybe size wasn't the most important thing after all. An instructor approached Liam and handed him a small device that looked like a smart wristband. It would deliver instructions through tiny vibrations, color signals, or sound cues. Mara had seen other candidates use it guided them through a series of tasks. "Are you ready?" the instructor asked. "Yes," Liam said simply. The instructor smiled, as if reassured by the quiet confidence. "Test begins in 30 seconds. Another trainer called out. Mara leaned forward, resting her arms on the railing. She wanted to see every detail. The hall suddenly grew quiet. Even the soft hum of the overhead lights seemed to fade. Liam took his place near the starting marker. He stood with his feet slightly apart, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes focused on nothing in particular. It almost looked like he was listening to something far away, something only he could hear. Mara found herself holding her breath. The timer beeped once. A soft voice from the speaker filled the hall. "Begin." The wristband flashed a blue light. Liam stepped forward smoothly, no rush, no stumble. The first cue required him to walk the cone path, following the colors in a specific order: blue, yellow, green, then red. Most candidates had hesitated during this part, trying to remember the sequence, but Liam moved confidently, stepping through the path like he had memorized it long before. The instructors exchanged glances. The wristband buzzed gently. Another cue. Liam shifted direction smoothly and moved toward the padded blocks. The task here was about balance and coordination. The candidate had to follow a routine, stepping onto a block with one foot, raising the opposite arm, lowering it at the right moment when the wristband chimed, then stepping to a second block without slipping or losing balance. Mara had watched for earlier. Candidates wobble or misjudge the timing. It was harder than it looked, but Liam moved with a calm rhythm, almost like a quiet dance. His balance was steady, his timing precise, and his expressions never changed. Rafi smiled knowingly. "This part is usually where we see who has natural control." "He's very smooth," Mara said quietly, surprised by how impressed she sounded. The wristband blinked again, this time with a soft green glow. This cue meant the partner awareness exercise was next. 3 instructors stepped forward, not to challenge him physically but to move around him in a flowing pattern. Liam had to mirror certain movements, avoid touching them, and respond to hand signals while staying graceful. It wasn't a contest, it was about cooperation, quick thinking, and staying calm even when several things happened at once. The instructors moved around Liam in slow circles, occasionally raising hands or shifting steps. Liam responded instantly, pivoting, raising his own hand, stepping sideways, changing direction without bumping into anyone. His awareness of space was remarkable. It felt like he knew exactly where everyone was without needing to look directly at them. Mara felt her eyes widened. She had never seen such smooth coordination before. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, it was deliberate and focused. The instructors nodded to each other with growing reapproval. Another cue appeared on Liam's wristband, this time an orange signal. This part required quick thinking. He had to pick up objects placed randomly around the room, match their colors to markers on the wall, and follow a changing pattern of instructions. It was like a puzzle disguised as a physical exercise. Mara watched closely. He didn't waste movements. Every step he took was efficient. Every choice he made was immediate. There was no frustration, no confusion, only concentration. For a moment, Mara felt as if she were watching someone reading a map no one else could see. Finally, the last cue glowed a soft white light. This was the cool-down test. The candidate had to slow down gradually, regulate breathing, and show they could remain calm even after the fast-paced tasks, while others had breathed heavily or needed long breaks. Liam transitioned into steady breaths almost instantly, as though the entire assessment had required no effort. The timer beeped once more. "Assessment complete," an instructor announced. Liam bowed his head politely and handed back the wristband. Mara exhaled a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. She looked at Rafi with surprise and a bit of awe. He didn't make a single mistake. She said softly, "No," Rafi replied with a smile. "He rarely does." Down below, Liam glanced up at the balcony. His expression was as calm as before, no pride, no expectation, no need for praise. Just a quiet awareness that he had completed what he came to do, and for the first time. Mara realized that the person she had dismissed with a short laugh might be the most capable candidate she had seen, not because of size, not because of physical strength, but because of something deeper: balance, discipline, awareness, and a calm mind under pressure, qualities that mattered far more than she had understood before. Mara remained on the balcony as the instructors reset the training floor for the next stage. She wasn't sure what she expected to see now. Part of her still held the image of Liam as the quiet, small applicant who had surprised her during the interview, but after watching him complete the earlier exercises with calm precision, she sensed that something even more unexpected was about to happen. Below, the instructors moved several padded training posts into a wide circle. These posts were used for coordination challenges, safe, adjustable, and designed to bounce lightly when touched. They were harmless, but when arranged in a pattern, they created a moving obstacle course that required quick thinking and perfect timing. Mara leaned forward, curious. "What is this part?" Rafi folded his arms, watching with interest. "This is the Advanced Awareness Challenge. Usually, only the top candidates reach this stage. What does it test? She asked, a mix of attention, balance, timing, and control. He replied, everything must be done safely, smoothly, and with full awareness of surroundings. No rushing, no force, only skill. Mara nodded slowly. She found herself more focused now than she had been during any of the earlier interviews. Something about watching someone in motion, someone who worked with quiet confidence, felt far more revealing than reading a resume. Liam stepped onto the center of the training floor again. His movements remained calm, as though he were entering a peaceful garden rather than a high-level evaluation. The head instructor walked up to him with a kind smile. Okay, Liam, same rules, just like before. This is a timing and awareness test. Stay relaxed, follow the cues, and let your experience guide you. I understand, Liam said gently. The instructor raised a hand toward the balcony. Observers ready. Mara nodded instantly, even though she didn't realize he couldn't see her properly from below. The lights dimmed slightly, not to create tension but to highlight the soft-colored markers around the room. The wristband on Liam's arm glowed faintly in response. A slow chime echoed across the hall. The test had begun. The training posts surrounding Liam began to move very slowly at first. Each post was attached to a small rotating base that allowed it to turn smoothly and safely in place. They rotated at different speeds, each with a colored stripe that lit up when a specific action was needed. The goal was for the participant to touch the glowing colors gently with the right hand or left hand at the correct moment, without bumping into any other post. Most candidates struggled with this part. They often reacted too late or too early, or they moved too quickly and lost balance. But Liam seemed to glide through the challenge with an almost natural rhythm. Mara watched his step, soft, careful, steady. The first colored stripe lit up blue on the post closest to him. Liam extended his left hand gently and tapped the stripe with practiced ease. The post continued moving, unaffected. The second stripe lit up behind him. Without turning too fast or losing control, Liam pivoted smoothly, waited for the perfect moment, and tapped it lightly. Blue, green, yellow, red. One after another. He never rushed and never hesitated. His movements looked like flowing water, quiet, smooth, and balanced. Mara inhaled slowly, amazed by his precision. She hadn't seen anything like it during the earlier assessments. How is he doing that? So is he, she whispered. Rafi smiled. This is what sets him apart. He sees patterns before others notice them. He understands rhythm, and he doesn't let pressure interfere with his thinking. As the test continued, the posts increased their rotation speed, not too fast, just enough to require closer attention. The colors flashed in new sequences. Some appeared only for a second before changing. Some required 2 touches in a row. Some required a touch and then a step back. Liam completed each instruction with astonishing timing, adjusting effortlessly. Sometimes he stepped sideways without looking down, yet he never misjudged the distance. Other times he leaned forward to reach a stripe at just the right moment, his fingertips connecting softly, never pushing too hard or too lightly. The instructors exchanged impressed glances. He's reading the whole pattern, one whispered. He always does. Another replied quietly. Mara's eyes followed every small movement he made. She felt a growing sense of not the dramatic kind, but the quiet realization that she was witnessing something incredibly rare. Liam wasn't showing off. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply doing what he had trained to do, with patience and total focus. The next stage of the exercise began when a series of small lights appeared on the floor, forming shifting lines and curves. The participant had to follow these paths carefully, stepping only on the illuminated spots while still responding to the rotating posts. It required attention above, below, and all around, full-body awareness. Most candidates struggled here, losing the path or missing a color. But Liam adapted instantly. His feet followed the glowing spots with graceful accuracy, lifting and lowering in rhythm. The soft floor lights responded to his movements like tiny stars guiding him through a sky made of patterns. Mara felt her heart lift slightly. She hadn't expected something so simple and peaceful to feel so powerful. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a show of strength. It was clarity. It was discipline. It was a mind completely present. Suddenly all posts around Liam lit up at once. The final cue. This was the part of the test meant to check how calmly someone reacted when everything happened together, instead of panicking or trying to touch everything at once. Liam did something different. He paused for a breath. Just one small breath. Then he moved. He flowed through the circle with such smooth control that Mara's eyes widened. He touched each colored stripe gently in the correct order while stepping along the moving floor lights. Each motion was precise. Nothing extra. Nothing wasted. The entire room seemed to quiet itself, watching him. Even from the balcony, Mara felt the change in atmosphere. It was as if everyone realized at the same moment, this was not ordinary skill. This was mastery. Within seconds, Liam had completed the pattern. The posts slowed down. The lights faded. The soft chime signaled the end of the assessment. Silence followed, warm, respectful silence. Then the instructors nodded with admiration. Perfect execution, one said softly. Smoothest pattern of the day. Another added. Liam bowed his head politely. Still modest, still calm, still unbothered by any attention. Mara exhaled a long breath she hadn't realized she had been holding. She felt her earlier doubts fade completely, replaced by genuine respect. She had laughed at him during the interview, not cruelly, but carelessly. She had seen his size and assumed it meant something about his ability. Now she realized how wrong she had been. Strength wasn't always loud. The skill wasn't always obvious. Confidence wasn't always spoken. Sometimes, true capability appeared in quiet, gentle movements that told a deeper story. As Liam looked up at the balcony, Mara met his eyes. He didn't look triumphant. He didn't look proud. He simply looked grounded, like someone who understood himself better than most people understood themselves. And in that moment, Mara felt something shift inside her. Curiosity turned into trust. Doubt turned into admiration. Surprise turned into certainty. She didn't know what the next stages of the process were, but she knew this much. Nothing about Liam was small, and she was about to learn just how big his quiet strength truly was. When the assessment ended, the training floor slowly returned to its normal routine. The instructors carried the equipment back to the storage area. The lights brightened again, and the quiet hum of the room returned. But the atmosphere around Mara felt different somehow, as if she were carrying a secret only she and a few others understood. She stayed on the balcony a moment longer, still processing what she had just seen. Liam began walking toward the exit, moving with the same relaxed steps he had shown from the beginning. Nothing about his posture suggested he had just completed one of the most challenging assessments the agency offered. There was no excitement, no rush, no need to celebrate. It was as if this was simply his daily routine, something he had practiced many times before. Raffi tapped the railing lightly and said, "Let's go meet him." Mara followed him down the stairs, her mind still replaying Liam's calm movements during the test. The closer she got to the training floor, the more she realized how different her perspective had become. Earlier that morning, she had looked at him and seen someone too small, too quiet, too gentle for the demanding role she needed. Now, she saw someone who understood balance, timing, and awareness in a way she had never witnessed before. Liam greeted them with a polite nod as they approached. "You did very well," Mara said, her voice softer than usual. And it wasn't something she said to be polite. She truly meant it. "Thank you," Liam replied calmly. "I'm glad the assessment was helpful." She noticed that he didn't ask how he performed. He didn't ask if he passed. He didn't seem concerned about impressing anyone. It was as though he already knew the only thing he could control was doing his best. The rest didn't trouble him. Raffi gestured toward a small meeting room near the hallway. "Let's talk for a few minutes." They walked together into the room. It was simple and clean, with a wooden table, 2 chairs on each side, and a window that let in warm afternoon light. Mara sat down first, and Liam sat across from her with his usual quiet posture. For a moment, no one spoke. Mara had so many questions in her mind, yet she didn't know where to start. She felt as though she had just been given a puzzle with 1,000 pieces, and she wanted to understand the picture it created. Finally, Raffi broke the silence. "Mara, I think this is a good time to explain something about Liam." Liam didn't react. He simply rested his hands gently on the table, as if he already knew what Raffi planned to share. Mara leaned forward, curious. "I'd like that." Raffi smiled gently. "Liam is different from most applicants. Not because of his size or his quiet personality, but because of where he comes from and how long he's trained." Mara nodded slowly. "His resume didn't say much." "That's because he doesn't list most of his history," Raffi said. "He believes personal background should stay personal unless it truly needs to be shared." Liam lowered his gaze slightly. "Not out of shame, but simply out of humility," Raffi continued. "He grew up in a small coastal town, a peaceful place with calm mornings and strong community bonds. Most children there spent their days playing near the shore. But Liam had a different routine." "What kind of routine?" Mara asked softly. "Training," Raffi answered. "Not training for competition or recognition, but training for discipline. His grandfather taught him from a very young age." Mara's interest deepened. "His grandfather?" "Yes," Raffi said. "A very respected man in their town. He believed in teaching children how to understand their own bodies, how to stay grounded, how to observe their surroundings, and how to keep a calm mind even when the world becomes confusing." "That sounds rare," Mara muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "It is," Raffi agreed. Liam learned balanced exercises before he learned how to write his name. He practiced breathing techniques every morning before school. He learned how to listen not just to people, but to silence, to rhythm, to the sensation of movement. Mara looked at Liam with renewed interest. She imagined a small boy standing beside the ocean, balancing on stones, practicing slow, carefully measured movements under his grandfather's guidance. She could almost picture the sunrise behind them, the waves creating a gentle soundtrack to their daily lessons. "That explains his calmness," she said. "It explains a lot more than that," Raffi replied. Liam's grandfather believed that true strength has nothing to do with size. He used to tell him, "A quiet mind sees farther than a loud one." Liam lifted his eyes and gave a small smile, the kind that carried memories. Mara smiled back. "Your grandfather sounds wise," Liam said quietly. He taught me everything I know about awareness and balance. What happened after that? Mara asked, her tone gentle, almost conversational. After my grandfather passed away, I continued training on my own, Liam said. Later, I joined a community group that focused on guiding young people through disciplined routines. We traveled to different places, sometimes helping schools create wellness programs or teaching breathing exercises to children who struggled with focus. Mara felt surprised, but pleasantly so. So you were helping others? Yes, Liam answered. It made me feel useful. I've never been comfortable with attention or praise, but helping people feel calmer or more confident, that felt meaningful. Rafi added. He eventually became one of the most skilled members of the program, not because he wanted to stand out, but because he practiced every single day without fail. Mara looked at Liam with admiration. Every day? Yes, Liam said, nodding softly. Even when I traveled, even when I was tired, it was a part of my life, like eating or sleeping. It kept me balanced. Mara rested her elbows on the table. You're very humble about it. There's no reason not to be, Liam replied softly. Skill isn't something to show off. It's something to take care of. His words sat warmly in the room. Mara felt them settle in her thoughts like quiet truths she hadn't realized she needed to hear. Rafi took a deep breath, preparing to share one more piece of the story. There's something else you should know. Mara listened closely. Liam has also spent years assisting teams, mostly humanitarian and educational groups, who work in places where conditions are unpredictable. His role was usually simple, guiding them safely through busy areas, helping them remain calm during crowded schedules, and making sure no one felt overwhelmed. So he already has experience working with people like me? Mara asked. Yes, Rafi said. A lot of it. And he approaches every task with the same steady mindset. He notices things others miss. He knows how to read the room, how to sense when someone is uncomfortable, and how to keep situations smooth and peaceful. Mara's eyes softened. It all made sense now. The calmness, the precision, the quiet confidence, none of it was an accident. It was a lifetime of practice, a lifetime of discipline, a lifetime of learning how to control not just the body, but the mind. She turned to Liam. Why didn't you mention any of this? He shrugged lightly. I didn't think it was necessary. You asked about work experience and I gave the basic details. The rest, well, those are just moments in my life, not achievements. But they are important, Mara said gently. They help me do my job, Liam replied. That's enough. Something in his honesty touched her deeply. She had met countless people in her field, people who spoke loudly about their accomplishments, who filled pages with descriptions of what they could do. But Liam wasn't like them. He didn't need to talk about his abilities. He simply showed them. Now she understood why the instructors respected him so much, why Rafi insisted she watch the assessment, why his resume was so short. Liam didn't want to be impressive. He wanted to be useful. He wanted to be steady. He wanted to be a quiet force in the background, supporting others without seeking credit. And that, Mara realized, was far more valuable than she had ever imagined. For the first time since this whole process began, she knew Liam wasn't just a candidate. He was the person she truly needed. He just didn't know it yet. Mara walked out of the small meeting room with a new sense of clarity. The afternoon sunlight drifted through the tall windows of the agency building, creating bright trails across the polished floor. She paused for a moment in the hallway, letting everything she had learned settle quietly in her mind. Behind her, Liam stepped out calmly, as if the conversation had been just another routine moment in his day. He didn't seem aware of the shift happening inside her thoughts, the way she now saw him with deeper respect, the way his quiet confidence had reshaped her understanding of what true strength looked like. Rafi clapped his hands lightly. Well, Mara, you've met all the candidates. You've seen the assessments. You know their backgrounds. He smiled with warm understanding. I think you already know who fits your needs. Mara met his eyes, then turned toward Liam. I do, she said. Liam didn't move, didn't react, didn't show any sign of expectation. He simply waited, as patient as ever. I would like you to join my team, Mara said gently, if you're willing. For a brief second, she wondered if he would hesitate. But Liam simply bowed his head slightly. I'm willing, he replied, and that was that. There was no dramatic moment, no loud celebration, no handshake squeezed with unnecessary strength. Just a simple agreement, made with sincerity and quiet trust. Over the next week, Mara's schedule grew busy as she prepared for a new set of field visits. Her organization needed her at multiple site schools, community groups, health centers, and training programs spread across different towns. She had always traveled with focus and energy, but this time, she felt a little more confident, knowing she had someone steady beside her. Their first day working together started early. The sky was soft with morning colors, a blend of gentle blue and faint gold. Mara waited outside her hotel, adjusting her bag strap and scanning her notes. She expected Liam to arrive casually late or quietly sudden. Instead, he appeared right on time, walking with his familiar, steady pace. Good morning, he greeted softly. Morning, Mara replied with a smile. Their journey that day took them to a small town known for its handmade craft markets and warm community gatherings. The drive was long, but the scenery was calm. Rolling hills, fields of green, and small clusters of houses with bright roofs that looked cheerful under the sun. At first, Mara thought the silence in the car might feel awkward, but it didn't. Liam sat beside her, observing the passing scenery with quiet interest. He didn't speak unnecessarily, yet his presence felt grounding, like a quiet anchor in a world that sometimes moved too fast. After a while, Mara started a conversation. "You travel often, don't you?" "Yes," Liam answered. "I like learning how people live in different places. Every town has its own rhythm." "That's a beautiful way to describe it," she said. He smiled slightly. "Your work has rhythm too, a mix of planning, listening, and guiding. It's peaceful in its own way." Mara blinked, surprised. "Peaceful? My team would laugh if they heard that." "Stress is loud," Liam said. "Purpose is quiet." The words settled gently, like a soft truth she hadn't noticed before. They reached the first community center an hour later. The center was small but lively, filled with colorful posters made by children and cheerful decorations created by local artists. People welcomed Mara warmly, shaking her hand and asking about her organization's progress. Liam remained at the edge of the room, polite and observant. He made sure the children didn't accidentally bump into equipment, helped older visitors find comfortable seats, and carried supplies when needed. He never acted as if the tasks were beneath him. He simply helped in whatever quiet ways he could. Mara found herself watching him more than once, not because she felt he needed supervision, but because his calm presence brought a natural balance to the room. People approached him easily. Children felt safe around him. Elderly visitors smiled when he offered them chairs. He blended into the environment, not as a guard or an outsider, but as someone who genuinely cared about the comfort of others. At lunchtime, the community offered them a simple homemade meal. Mara sat at a wooden table with a group of local teachers. Liam sat at another table with a few teenagers who were curious about him. They asked him questions about his travels, his training, and his experiences. He answered each one kindly, never exaggerating, never making himself sound grand. He kept his stories simple, focusing on the lessons he had learned: discipline, patience, and the importance of staying centered. One of the teachers whispered to Mara, "Your companion has a very calming effect. The children like him." Mara smiled. "I know, he has that effect everywhere." The teacher nodded warmly. People like him are rare. By late afternoon, their work in the community center was finished. Mara gathered her notes, thanked everyone, and prepared to leave. As she stepped outside, she felt a light breeze brushing against her face. She took a long breath. It had been a good day, productive, warm, and filled with quiet moments of connection. Liam walked beside her toward the car. "You handled everything well today." "That's kind of you to say," she replied, "but it was easy with so much support." "You create comfort wherever you go," he said. "People trust you quickly." Mara paused, touched by his observation. "Thank you, Liam. That means a lot coming from someone like you." He nodded. Their next visit came the following day, and then the next. Each location brought different challenges: tight schedules, large gatherings, unexpected changes, but Liam adapted effortlessly. He carried bags without being asked, organized materials before events began, guided visitors gently, and helped create calm in moments of confusion. And every time Mara's team members met him, they reacted the same way. First surprised by his quiet appearance, then genuinely impressed by his steady presence. One afternoon, after a long meeting with local volunteers, Mara sat on a park bench outside the town hall. The sun was low, casting warm golden light across the pavement. She rubbed her forehead gently and exhaled. "Tired?" Liam asked, taking a seat a few feet away. "A little," she admitted, "but it's a good kind of tired. You've been speaking non-stop for hours. It's natural to feel drained." She laughed softly. "You sound like you've worked with many people like me." He tilted his head thoughtfully. "Not exactly like you, but I've seen many people give all their energy to help others. They forget to breathe sometimes." "Do I forget to breathe?" she asked jokingly. "Only when you're focused," he said with a gentle smile. Mara relaxed. The moment felt quiet and warm. For the first time since hiring him, she felt comfortable enough to bring up the topic that had been on her mind for days. "Liam, I want to apologize." He looked at her calmly. "For what?" "For the way I reacted during your interview," she said softly. "When I made that comment about you being too small, it was unfair and unkind." Liam shook his head lightly. "You don't need to apologize. Most people react the same way. They rely on what they see." "But I judged you without knowing you," she insisted. "Everyone does," Liam said gently. "We all have moments where we misunderstand others. What matters is what we learn from those moments." His words weren't just kind, they were freeing. They allowed her to forgive herself while understanding him better. She nodded slowly. "Still, I want you to know, I appreciate your patience and your clarity. You've changed how I think about my work, and about people." Liam looked down at his hands for a moment before speaking. "My grandfather used to say that life gives us two chances. The chance to see someone, and the chance to truly know them. Most people only use the first, and I almost did the same with you," Mara admitted. "But you didn't," Liam said softly. "That's what matters." The breeze danced gently through the leaves above them. It felt like a quiet confirmation of the truth in his words. Over the following months, their partnership grew stronger. Mara grew more confident, more balanced, more mindful of her own pace. Liam grew more comfortable, more open, more connected to the team. He was still quiet, still gentle, still calm, but now Mara understood those qualities for what they truly were. Signs of deep, grounded strength. Whenever new partners from other organizations visited, they often asked Mara the same question: "Who is he?" And she always answered with a proud smile: "He's the one who keeps everything steady." She no longer introduced him as her god. She introduced him as the person who supported the entire team with clarity and calm. And every time she said it, Liam simply gave his small, humble smile, the same one he always gave. Because he didn't need recognition. He didn't need attention. He didn't need praise. He only needed purpose. And with Mara's team, he had finally found it. The person she once underestimated had become the person she now trusted the most, and that, she realized, was the most unexpected and meaningful part of her journey.